Hi, this is Kirk, Bariatric Carnivore. Well, today is arm day, so we're going to try to put our upper body under strain, build muscle, build strength, yet at the same time not try to hurt myself. Those are my three main goals when it comes to lifting weights or resistance training. Now, there's different theories on how you can make that happen. One of them is to push yourself in a single set to close to muscle failure as you possibly can get. You can also break it down into sets where you'll do maybe 12, 10, 8, and try to get as close to failure as possible. You can do drop sets. There's a whole bunch of different stuff you can do, but frankly, most of it is designed for gym bros who are trying to create a physique. And if I'm really trying to get you out of the mindset that somehow you've got to do what Arnold did and what bodybuilders do. That's not the goal. I mean, my goal is pretty simple. I want muscle and strength to age well. I really don't care about aesthetics. I don't care about, trying to come up with this ultimate pump. I'm not trying to get jacked. I just want muscle and strength. And it's an unfortunate reality that about 85% of adults in my age group, I'm 62, do not engage in any type of resistance training, and as a result, we're becoming more frail. And this really comes back to bite you as you start to move into your 60s, 70s, and beyond, because you're not going to be able to get out of the chair. You're not going to be able to go to the bathroom by yourself without having help. And that's the problem. That's what we're trying to avoid. And the only way to do that is by progressive resistance training. What I mean by progressive is it's got to get a little bit harder every single time. And there's different techniques you can use. You can use body weight, that's more than fine. You can utilize weights, those are great too. But I like bands, and it's something that I found during COVID because they closed the gyms and I lost access to them. And I found out that trying to build a weight gym at home is very expensive and also takes a huge amount of space. And the cool thing about doing bands is they are very inexpensive and they don't take hardly any space at all. Matter of fact, you can take your gym with you when you're traveling. So, and it does basically the same thing. There is a difference though. If you are trying to get jacked, and the real problem with using bands for resistance training is you cannot get the same range of motion. There's cool things about it. There's a lot of advantages to it. So for instance, when you're pushing with this type of thing, the lightest amount of resistance I'm going to get is here at the bottom, which is great if you don't want to hurt yourself, because that, this is the weakest point of the muscle, and this is where injuries could really happen when it comes to lifting weights. And if you've got a bar about as much as you can do, this is where you're probably most likely going to really hurt yourself. But it's the most tension is at the end, and which is great because that's where I want to build up the strength. So, but the problem is a lot of the muscle growth actually comes down at this point. When you're in this extension form down here at the bottom, that's where you're going to get a lot of growth too, and you can't get it with the bands, unfortunately. But, everything's a trade-off. There's no perfect system, but this does, look, if I get 80% or so of the results with doing 20% of the effort, that's kind of a bargain in my place. So, try to utilize what you've got, and something beats nothing when it comes to resistance training. So try to get some in. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be pushing like you would if you were trying to compete for a bodybuilding competition. But just getting some resistance training in is going to be very helpful. And the reason why I do the system I do is I think it creates pretty darn good results. I mean, I have no doubt I'm getting stronger, I'm developing more muscle, I'm at least maintaining what I've got as I'm going into my 60s. So, you know, I'm getting stronger. I'm doing progressive stuff, but, you know, at the same time, I'm not hurting myself. You know, and the way I do it is with an interval timer. I try to get as much as I can get done in a minute, as close to failure as possible. So what I really want, I'm not utilizing the same regular heavy bands that I would during my sessions, because I want to push myself as close to failure within a minute as possible. And the way I kind of judge that is when I'm down like in the last 10 seconds, if I can barely push it out there, and if I can't do a complete push, I know I'm getting very close to failure. So that's kind of like my gauge on this thing. Because the other problem with using bands is you cannot get the accuracy than you can with weights. I mean, I will tell you that, you know, with absolute certainty that, you know, that system is great. You can keep better logs, etc. But if you just want to get stronger, then, you know, grab some bands on Amazon and start really working on this stuff. So let's go through a workout and show you what I do in general form. I mean, this is not like my standard as close to failure as I can get, but it's not bad. So what I do is I set an interval timer, and I have it set for 30 seconds, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the lift for 1 minute, which is 2 cycles, and then take a 30-second rest, and then move on to the next one. And the goal is to kind of alternate between pushing moves and pulling moves, and then moving down from the bigger muscles to the smaller muscles. That's what I'm trying to do here. So just to kind of give you an idea, and this is not like the ultimate workout. I'm not saying that you've got to do this system. You know, there's enough people out there that can tell you, you know, the ultimate perfect system to get whatever result you're trying to get. I'm just trying to give you an idea of what I do, so hopefully it'll give you some inspiration to try this out. So we're going to do the first sets of exercises inside, then I'm going to show you a couple of over-the-door pulling exercises that I do that I call prehab exercises. So for right now, let's start off with bench pressing or pushing. So we set the timer. We've now got a minute on there, and just pushing, you know, which is pretty equivalent to a bench press. Now, you can do this on a bench. You can do it standing up. One of the advantages of doing this, you know, with bands is, you know, you're not stuck to a plane of motion. You know, with weights, you can only go up and down. That's all the resistance. But with this, you know, you can do it anywhere. You know, and you can do it at home. You can wear anything or nothing at all. It doesn't make any difference. Now, usually what will happen is, okay, I got about 10 seconds left. I'll be out like this, and the last few are going to be really hard. That's my goal, is just to get this last couple. There we go. So that's the first one. Now, the next exercise is a leaned over. I'm going to lean over and I'm going to do a lat pull-up. So I just did a pushing motion. Now I'm going to do a pulling motion. So put this on the ground. The other nice thing is you can set your own anchor point where you put your feet. It makes a difference. Look up while you're doing this. And use those arms to pull the weight up. A little too much tension this morning. So we're going to use the lats and the arms, pull the weight up. Try to keep your head up while you're doing it. Nice thing about having a mirror in the bedroom where I normally work out is I can sort of see what my form is while I'm doing it. A little difficult with that screen to see exactly what I'm doing, but yeah, you get a pretty darn good pull on that. Now, that's the pushing motion. Now let's start working the shoulders, and I try to break up my shoulder routines to different exercises, so I kind of mix them up. So we're going to do some overhead presses with a band. So we get the band up here and up, and something I do is I just throw in a little extra at this top to put a little extra strain on the shoulders. But you can, use different resistances. But this is basically the same thing as you would use with a barbell. But you can put in a little extra twist on it, because you've got that flexibility of the band. So utilize, whatever you got, and do a little bit more. Oh, okay. Now we move into everybody's favorite. This is for all the dudes. Most of my lifts are sort of compound lifts. They're utilizing different muscle groups, but there's one lift that you've got to do if you're a guy, and that is a curl. So we got this is the bicep curl. This is my setup for that. Stand on the bar and we're just curling up, just like you would at the gym, utilizing bar curl. Now, you can do this with handles, so you can do each arm individually if you want, but I just do a standard barbell curve. And this is the real advantage of using these bands is when you're doing it with a barbell, when you get to this point, or with weights, you get to this point, from all up here, there's not as much resistance on there because gravity is not, you're not pulling against gravity. But this is getting tougher all the way up. The maximum tension is up here. So you're really developing your biceps more than you would actually using a barbell because of the resistance curve of the bands. So that's a real nice feature. Now we're going to do shoulder work number 2. You may have done this with barbells or dumbbells in the gym. What I do is I take my bands and I step on them, and we're going to do raises. Try to keep your shoulders back, head up while you're doing it, and you want to keep resistance on it so you don't go all the way down so where there's no resistance, but you try to keep it like that, and you're going to really work your deltoids, the shoulder muscles. And it's aesthetically nice, but you want to keep as much shoulder mobility. I mean, how many people do you know have had shoulder surgery because they lost strength and power in their shoulder muscles and they eventually hurt themselves? So you want to keep your shoulders strong, and this is a great way to do it. Okay. Now, I mentioned prehab work exercises, and a couple of things that I do And these are 30-second little quickies to pull on the shoulder muscles while I've got them, to strengthen these back muscles in the upper shoulders that most people don't do. Nobody can see the muscle back there, so we don't do very much with them back there. But they're really important muscles that we want to keep strong and all that. So doing these pull aparts, and you can move it closer if you want, or you can move it further apart depending on how much resistance you've got. And I do that for 30 seconds, and then I do this one. Same basic motion. I'm hitting a little slightly different muscle in the back when I do it, but we're what I'd call prehabbing the shoulder. I mean, before there's any problems, I'm strengthening those back muscles and stuff that are often hurt by doing stuff. Now, I'm going to pause the video and we're going to go inside, and I'm going to show you a couple of pull down exercises that are also really important. Okay, now we're in my hallway, and we're going to show you a couple of exercises that I actually kind of throw in at different times during the workout routine, but it was difficult to go back and forth. So let's show you a couple of exercises that I consider prehab exercises. They don't build a lot of muscle, but they're really important. So anyway, we've got the band hooked over the door, and we do, this one is just a straight arm pull down. So we take the bands and we're just going to go straight down, up and down, and we're hitting the muscles in the back. And you can vary the resistance by lifting up a little bit higher and pulling down, etc. So, but just pulling straight up and down, keeping the arm straight, builds up these muscles in the back again that are going to make you just trying to avoid shoulder surgery. That's kind of the goal of that. So this is a different band than I usually use for this one. I can feel it. So we're doing this again just for a minute. Okay, now the next one is one that you're probably familiar with, which is a tricep pull down. So you get your arms like this, and we're just going to pull straight down, and we're going to build up the triceps. So we're going to do a tricep pull down for a minute. Tricep, is like one of the most, it's the biggest muscle in your arm. It's the one that's going to show off. So kind of like the bicep, you just want to have big, strong triceps. So again, we're just trying to give you an idea of what it looks like. And again, you can vary the resistance on that. You can take one foot, put it behind the other, and you can step further away from the anchor point if you need more resistance. So there's a lot of different ways of making this thing even more challenging as you do it. You can go really slow. And that is really painful if you do that. Okay. The final one that I want to show you, which is another prehab exercise, is called a face pull. And this is another pulling motion where you're pulling back like this. And it's going to get those upper shoulders again, which what I would call a prehab move to try to help prevent injury and strengthen these muscles. So we face the thing and we pull back, and the nice thing about it is the further away you can get those hands getting back toward your ears, the better off you're going to be when you do this. And you can do it up, down, sideways, whatever, but try to get those upper shoulder muscles to really fire up and get stronger. And again, what are you trying to do? Avoid surgery. One of my goals is never be on the first name basis with an orthopedic surgeon. If I can avoid having my knees and hips and shoulders worked on, I think I've won in the game of life. Oh, okay. So that'll give you an idea of the exercises I do in order to work my upper body. And total time on this is somewhere around 10-15 minutes, somewhere in that range. And that's it. Once a week, I do upper body. Once a week, I spend 10 to 15 minutes on lower body. And then I'll do a 22-minute full body workout using a thing called a TRX, which is a suspension trainer. And I do all the body on that one. I usually save that for like Saturdays. So Monday, is a leg or arm. Wednesday, leg or arm. Saturday, full body. Now, that does not mean that that's all I do for exercise. I mean, I try to stay active. I try to do 6,000 to 10,000 steps a day. I'm moving. I use a standing desk. Things like that is activity. But this is resistance training designed to build muscle, build strength, not hurt myself. That's the simple goal of it. So this is Kirk, the Bariatric Carnivore. This is hopefully give you some inspiration to try stuff out, to try to create a workout program that works for you. There are a lot of really great fitness influencers. And if you Google banned workouts, you're going to find a lot of them. And put together a program that kind of works for you, mixing, pushing motions, pulling motions. Don't neglect things like your upper shoulders and stuff and those back muscles that you can't see, but are going to help you maintain a really good posture, to strengthen that back, to keep you from being all hunched over. Because look, most of us, we're looking at our phones all day and we're kind of hunched over. We're looking at our computers and we're hunched over. So strengthening these muscles in the back so that you've got strong posture, so you're not hunched over all the time, is a great way to age well. You don't want to be that hunched over person because it throws you off balance. It's going to kill your gait. It's going to make it more difficult for you to be mobile. And that's what we want, man. We want to be mobile. We want to be strong. We want to be as energetic as possible for as long as possible. This is Kirk, the Bariatric Carnivore. If you like this message, please hit like and subscribe, share with other people. Hopefully we can inspire more people than the paltry less than 15% who engage in any type of resistance training to start doing more. Because it's not as expensive and it's not as hard, and you don't have to be a gym bro. You just have to be able to do something that's going to put your body under resistance, and it takes less time than you think. I will talk to you again soon.